A longtime rival of Sean Diddy Combs isn't holding back his feelings on the embattled rapper and producer. Curtis Jackson, better known as 50 Cent, has spoken out and at points even trolled Diddy numerous times before and after Diddy was swimming in several lawsuits for alleged sexual misconduct.
The image didn't crack slowly. It shattered. One moment it looked intact, polished by years of success, repetition, and carefully maintained perception. The next moment.
Now, in a new interview recently published by The Hollywood Reporter, the Get Rich or Die Trying rapper isn't mincing words on how he really feels about his arch rival. In the interview, 50 Cent addressed his relationship with Diddy, who faces a number of troubling allegations, including rape, sexual assault, sexual harassment, and sex trafficking over a string of lawsuits. 50 Cent says he's been very vocal about not going to Diddy's now infamous parties, which have been alleged as the site of some of the heinous acts he's been accused of. While referring to Diddy as his old moniker Puffy, 50 Cent said, "I've been very vocal about not going to Puffy parties and doing stuff like that. I've been staying out of that stuff for years. It's an uncomfortable energy connected to it." When asked if someone told 50 Cent if the energy there was off or if he went to something that felt odd, 50 replied, "He asked to take me shopping. I thought that was the weirdest stuff in the world, because that might be something that a man says to a woman." He would go on to say, "From that, I wasn't comfortable around him." 50 Cent would go on to discuss the brutal hotel surveillance video released in May, which showed the Bad Boy founder horrifically attacking his ex-girlfriend Cassie. That incident was mentioned in Cassie's now settled lawsuit against Diddy, in which Diddy allegedly paid $50,000 for the tape. Once that video was made public, Diddy issued a public apology. However, didn't mention Cassie by name, as it's been reported Diddy is no longer able to say her name publicly as a part of their settlement.
I was f***ed up. I hit rock bottom. But I make no excuses. My behavior on that video is inexcusable. I take full responsibility for my actions in that video. I'm disgusted. I was disgusted then when I did it. I'm disgusted now. I went and I sought out professional help. I had to go into therapy and go into rehab. I had to ask God for His mercy and grace. I'm so sorry. But I'm committed to be a better man each and every day. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm truly sorry.
The video was published to Diddy's Instagram, but has since been scrubbed from his page. Diddy's rival 50 Cent had choice words about the brutal video, saying first he denied that even happened, and then the tape comes out, so that means everything that N-word says is a lie. When someone watches that, if they have a daughter and they can imagine her being under those circumstances, that stuff is crazy. Like they let him get away with it. With all the influence and power you have, the person you're with is supposed to be a part of your life, not be forced. 50 Cent has long touted his plans to make a docuseries about his longtime rival. When asked what made 50 want to produce the series, he replied in part, "I'm the only one from hip-hop culture that's produced quality projects." 50 Cent and Diddy have collaborated on a few songs together, and when 50 was an unsigned rapper more than 20 years ago, he used to ghostwrite for the Bad Boy founder. But 50 Cent made it clear the two just worked together. He replied in part, "I wouldn't call it a friendship because there would be disappointment between us if we didn't speak to each other. There's points that we work together." 50 Cent would go on to credit Jennifer Lopez, Diddy's ex-girlfriend, who 50 Cent said told Diddy he would work with him as a songwriter in the beginning of his career. 50 Cent said this occurred when he was getting back to work after being shot several times in May of 2000. He would recall, though, one time when Diddy called and 50's oldest son's mother answered the phone and 50 refused to talk to Diddy. 50 would go on to say he didn't want to answer the phone because
it fractured under the weight of words that refused to stay buried. Not rumors recycled, not anonymous whispers. Direct statements that hit with enough force to change how everything is seen. An image doesn't fall apart because of one bad day. It falls apart because pressure builds quietly over time, because stories get stacked on top of each other, because silence protects until it suddenly doesn't. And when someone finally steps forward and speaks plainly, the illusion collapses faster than anyone expects. The shock wasn't theatrical. There was no dramatic reveal staged for attention. It felt more like a door being opened that was never supposed to be unlocked. And once it opened, people saw enough to realize they'd been standing in front of it for years without asking what was behind it. Image matters in the industry, maybe more than truth. Image is currency, it opens doors, silences critics, rewrites history, and once that image is shattered, it doesn't matter how long it took to build, the damage spreads instantly. What stunned people wasn't just what was hinted at.
That's except for one famous friend, Stephen Jordan, aka Stevie J, who's Diddy's longtime friend. After Rodney Lil Jones Jr. filed his federal lawsuit against Diddy earlier this year, in which he referenced Diddy's infamous parties as seemingly the scene of a number of the allegations he now faces, including sex trafficking, forced drugging, and compromising footage of celebrities that have been held as blackmail. Stevie J seemingly responded with a post to Instagram with the caption, "This is what a real Diddy party looks like." The video showed a number of famous faces, including Jay-Z and Beyonce, Kim Kardashian, her then-husband Kanye West, Naomi Campbell, and several others who were all together to celebrate Diddy's 50th birthday in 2019. Fast forward to 2024, 50 was asked why there have been so many silent voices when it comes to celebs speaking out about Diddy, as if they're afraid to speak up. 50 replied in part, "Some of them were involved at the parties and enjoyed themselves, so they don't know what the F is on the tape or what's not on the tape, so they're not going to say anything because they might have had too much fun." And then you've got other people who look at it and go, "Well, that's not my business and I don't want to be in it." Then you got a part of our culture that says that's snitching or dry snitching. It's uncomfortable for me to say what I said because I've been saying this stuff for 4 or 5 years. Everybody else is not going to be as comfortable as I'm saying it. 50 Cent then alleged there's one famous friend that is aware of Diddy's alleged disturbing behavior. R&B legend Mary J. Blige, who got her start at Diddy's Bad Boy Records, has been a longtime friend of the embattled rapper and producer, but she reportedly has a great relationship with 50 Cent as well. When asked if Mary J. Blige reached out to 50, he responded, no, you know what? Mary never reached out to tell me not to F up Puffy because she knows he does that stuff." As Diddy and 50 Cent have long been in the rap game, they share another commonality, and that's 50 Cent's ex-girlfriend and the mother of his youngest son, Daphne Joy Navarez. The actress and OnlyFans model was named in Rodney Jones' suit against Diddy, as she was referenced to as an alleged sex worker of Diddy's that also gets paid a monthly stipend. She has denied those allegations in a post made to social media, writing, "I am deeply hurt by the lies in Rodney Jones' lawsuit. The claim that I'm a sex worker is 100% false and character assassination. I am retaining an attorney to explore all legal remedies against both Rodney and his attorney." 50 Cent seemingly poked fun at the allegation of the mother of his son being an alleged sex worker. In a post made to his social media page, 50 wrote a caption, "I didn't know you was a sex worker, you little sex worker, LOL." But this would prompt Daphne Joy to respond to her ex again on social media, but this time would accuse 50 directly of rape and being abusive during their relationship. She would write in part, "Everything is a joke to you until our safety is compromised, which is happening now. You are wreaking real havoc, frenzy, and chaos onto people's lives. How would you feel if Sire was the one in handcuffs for nothing? Let's put the real focus on your true evil actions of raping me and physically abusing me. You are no longer my oppressor, and my God will handle you from this point on. You have permanently damaged the last hope I had for you as a father to preserve our family with these last and final false claims made against me. You have broken our hearts for the last and final time." Those allegations against 50 Cent would prompt him to fire back against his ex Daphne Joy and sue her for defamation. In his suit, 50 Cent said those allegations were unequivocally false and would claim she made the shocking allegations in retaliation after he moved to take sole custody of their son. Since that suit, Daphne has deleted her Instagram post accusing 50 of rape and physical abuse. 50 Cent was asked by The Hollywood Reporter the latest in the defamation suit. The rapper and television producer said he tiptoes around the Daphne stuff and explained why. He said, "I got a family court case. The allegations that
Was the confidence behind it, the absence of fear, the refusal to cushion words or dress them up for comfort. That tone alone signaled that something had shifted permanently. For years, perception did the heavy lifting. People accepted the story they were given because it was easier than questioning it, easier than digging, easier than asking why certain patterns kept appearing around the same circles. But when revelations surface, image loses its armor. Suddenly, past moments are replayed through a different lens. Old interviews sound different. Old behavior feels heavier. Things once dismissed as personality quirks start looking like warning signs. That's how images truly shatter, not in one explosion, but in a chain reaction of reinterpretation. The reaction was immediate and divided. Some rushed to defend the image, clinging to nostalgia, loyalty, or disbelief. Others felt vindicated, like something they'd sensed for years was finally being acknowledged publicly. And then there was the quiet majority, the ones who didn't rush to comment,
Came out, she posted things to her page saying some crazy stuff, but this comes 8 hours after I filed for custody for my son. And she put that up in response to that, and I'm like, ugh. In this climate, you know how quickly they pass judgment. Things have worked out since she said those things. He went on to add, I'd like to respond and say some wild stuff, but I've got to sustain that for my son. 50 was asked if he was worried about the allegations, especially given he's making a docuseries about an alleged abuser. And 50 replied, it is damaging. It is damaging just to have anything said about you at this point, because you have people out there who don't believe your intentions. And if things are going in a positive direction for you and something pops, they gasp. He went on to say for entertainment purposes, they exploit that as much as possible, but there's no merit to it. But one thing 50 wasn't asked was if he believed Diddy would be formally charged and or potentially indicted for the many allegations he still faces. But attorney Ben Chu, who represented Johnny Depp during his trial against Amber Heard, says he does see an indictment coming down in Diddy's future.
I agree with that. I mean, obviously, I don't have any inside information. I don't think many people do, but I do think the signs are ominous. These are very grave matters. As you know, there have been 2 raids on his properties, and that's obviously very ominous signs for him. Although, interestingly, we haven't seen the indictments yet. There's been some time lag. I suppose it will take some time to go through all the forensic, evidence, but still, these are very serious matters. So, I think he faces some serious reckoning.
Diddy faces a staggering number of civil lawsuits for sexual misconduct, 10 that have been filed since last November. Former adult film star Adria English filed her suit on July 3rd of this year, claiming she was first employed by Combs in 2004 and was groomed into sex trafficking over time. In May of this year, April Lampros filed her lawsuit against Combs, accusing him of battery and sexual assault. 2 days prior to Lampros' suit being filed, Crystal McKinney also filed a suit against Diddy. McKinney alleges she met Combs at a studio where he gave her a lace joint, alcohol, then forced her to the bathroom and forced her to perform oral sex on him. Rodney Jones Jr. filed his lawsuit in federal court in February of this year that accuses Combs and the people who work with him of being part of an illegal racketeering enterprise. He also accused Diddy of sex trafficking, sexual assault, and harassment. Then there's a suit filed by a woman under the moniker Jane Doe, which was filed in December of 2023. Doe alleges she was gang raped and sex trafficked by Combs and former Bad Boy Records president Harve Pierre when she was just 17 years old and in the 11th grade. Liza Gardner filed her lawsuit against Combs and R&B singer Aaron Hall in November of 2023, alleging the two forced her to have sex with them against her will when she was 16 years old. On the same day Gardner's suit was filed, another suit was filed, this one by Joy Dickerson Neal. She alleges Combs intentionally drugged her, then sexually assaulted her and recorded the assault. And then there's the only lawsuit that has been settled, a mere day after it was filed in federal court, and that's the federal lawsuit filed by Diddy's ex-girlfriend, singer and actress Cassandra Ventura, aka Cassie. In Cassie's now settled lawsuit against her ex, she accused Diddy of sexual assault, battery, sex trafficking, and requiring her to engage in forced sexual acts. Since the ongoing suits, Diddy has appeared to be living his life. He's been pictured biking around South Beach, getting onto his lavish private jet, and even whitewater rafting. But for his accusers, it hasn't been sitting well. After the photos were made public of Diddy seemingly enjoying his summer vacation in Wyoming, Cassie's lawyer Douglas Wigder released a statement to TMZ saying, quote,
The ones who paused, because they understood that once an image is cracked, defending it blindly becomes risky. What made the revelations so powerful was that they didn't rely on spectacle, they relied on implication, on the idea that certain truths were hidden not because they were unknown, but because they were inconvenient. That implication alone is enough to destroy trust. Image depends on agreement to admire, agreement to overlook, agreement to stay quiet. When someone breaks that agreement, the entire structure starts to wobble. The industry felt it instantly. Conversations shifted, people became careful with their words, associations were reconsidered quietly, no announcements, just distance, and distance is often the first real sign that an image has lost its power. Shattering an image doesn't require proof in the courtroom sense, it requires doubt. Once doubt takes root, perception does the rest. People began asking questions they hadn't asked before. Why certain stories always seem to disappear. Why
The trial of Sean Diddy Combs and everything that's going on inside the courtroom is Afi Patterson, civil and criminal defense attorney. Thanks for taking the time to be with us. We're focusing on what was a minor moment in the grand scheme of everything we heard in the trial this week. But there's this anecdote that Capricorn Clark told about what related to 50 Cent, but what Diddy allegedly told 50 Cent's manager at MTV during her time of working for Diddy. What did you make of that? Sean Combs saying, I don't like the back and forth, but I like guns.
I think it goes to the overall case. They've been saying that Diddy was a dangerous guy. If he made a threat, he could back it up. And I do recall reading that she said that his demeanor was very, very serious. And knowing the history, knowing his history, his violent history, knowing about the beef between Biggie and Tupac, I think that it probably frightened her. And I think that just again, her knowing about his violence, his propensity for violence, his behavior with her, his behavior with Cassie, his behavior with other employees, he's just continually reinforcing that violence. So I think it was a really good moment for the government.
Yeah, it's just, and it seems like there are these little moments along the way where there are some celebrity names that pop up. This case, it was 50 Cent. We heard earlier in the trial, Usher and Neo were at a dinner where Cassie was allegedly assaulted. It was unclear whether they saw that, but it was said that they were there. As far as the history of 50 Cent and Diddy, do we know how it started? I know that 50 Cent had a diss track, I think around 2006, claiming that Sean Combs knew who killed Biggie Smalls. But is there a particular incident that happened that made 50 Cent just seem to really start to come at Sean Combs?
I don't know what's ground zero for them. I've seen, interviews that 50 has given saying that it's all business with them. I know they both have alcohol lines, and I know, they're both from New York. I think 50 is maybe from Queens and Diddy is from Harlem. I don't know what their ground zero is, but I know that since this all came out, 50 has not stopped. He's been taunting Diddy online. You, of course, know about the documentary. I believe it got picked up by Netflix, and he is supposedly donating the proceeds to victims of domestic violence. Diddy has had his knee on his neck and his foot to the gas on Diddy for a while. But again, I don't know where it started.
Yeah, I mean, 50 Cent, for many people, if it was ever, there was an anecdote that came out that someone had said, oh, I like guns when talking about a back and forth, it might scare you. 50 Cent was at the Knicks-Pacers game in Indiana with a free Diddy t-shirt on, sitting courtside the next day. It's different. It was, yeah, it was different. I look back, and we aired a bit kind of leading into this interview, a clip from the Breakfast Club. It was 2018, and Diddy was on the show, and they asked about the issues that he had with 50 Cent. And he said, there's no issues. I love him. He loves me. He was kind of joking about it. And then you hear these stories that come out, whether it's this one specifically about 50 Cent or just in general, the picture that's being painted by the government in this trial. For you, has kind of the image of Sean Combs and who you thought he was, has it changed during the course of what we've seen over the last couple of weeks?
Certainly over the course of what we've seen, but I think I've seen an interview where 50 said, if you want to go nowhere, go to Diddy. If you're ready for your career to die, go to
Certain behavior was normalized. Why silence lasted as long as it did? Those questions don't need answers to be damaging. They only need to exist. What's uncomfortable is realizing how much effort went into maintaining the image in the first place. How many people benefited from it staying intact? How many chose not to look too closely because success made everything feel legitimate? Revelations like these don't just target one person, they threaten an ecosystem. They suggest that image management was prioritized over accountability, that comfort was valued over truth. That's why the response was so tense, not explosive, tense. Controlled panic hides behind calm faces. Some tried to turn this situation into entertainment, turning serious implications into jokes, memes, distractions. That strategy works sometimes, but it doesn't work when the tone of the revelations is too grounded to laugh away. The shattering wasn't about humiliation, it was about exposure. Exposure of the gap between who someone was presented as and
Diddy. It's long been rumored that Diddy didn't necessarily treat his artists properly. And if you look through his roster of artists, you'll see a lot of individuals whose careers probably started off really, really well, but they ended up with no money. That's long been the rumor. There've been rumors of abuse by Diddy toward Cassie and toward Kim and some other women as well. Even when he was at, I think Uptown is where he originally started. So there have always been rumors, but nothing really solidified and verified like we've had in this trial. It's been awful. I think it would be awful for anyone. I don't think his reputation is in the business world certainly will never recover. And even if he's found not guilty, his name is mud. I don't think that it's recoverable. I think everybody is extremely shocked, especially just some of the sexually explicit things. We have a huge morality issue in America. So anything that's like a little deviant is just not going to be really good for you. So I think everybody's a little shocked. I'm a little shocked and appalled and horrified, and I think a lot of people are. But this is not what we knew. We knew some things weren't right, but we didn't know just how wrong they were.
And I feel like we just knew because, I mean, we all grew up, whether it was, some of the roles he had in movies, and I mean, he was everywhere, and then his brands were everywhere. And it's like Making the Band was such like a hit show on MTV back in the day. And there's that famous scene where he has all the contestants walk to Brooklyn to go get, I think it was Junior's cheesecake. And he's yelling at people. And then it seemed like everyone around him in any documentary that he did, it was like, oh, that's just Puff because he's always just so angry. And then it's just this whole other level in the trial where it just, as an attorney, I mean, how effective has the government been as you just read, and we can only read transcripts really and kind of hear from the people we have in the courtroom, but just at this point, how effective has the government been in painting the picture of this isn't just someone who was a domestic abuser, this isn't someone who was just a mean boss, but this was a racketeer who was running a criminal enterprise.
Yeah, and I think the forced labor issue. I think they've done an excellent job with that. With the transcripts I've been reading, a lot of the people are saying that they worked for 20 hours, like that's the magic number, 20 hours straight. They, on a good day, we heard you'll get 4 hours of sleep. On a bad day, you'll get 4 hours of sleep. I think one of the what is it? A bodyguard said, if you sleep, you're getting fired. Like it was more rhythmic than that. I don't know, but you couldn't sleep around him, and I think that's what we saw with Making the Band. But again, we really didn't believe it. We thought it was for entertainment purposes. We didn't think someone could really act like this. And if an employee gave any pushback, they would either be terminated or they'd be threatened with reputational damage. They would be threatened with being blackballed, or they actually would be blackballed. And I think the government is doing an excellent job of proving forced labor.
And on that forced labor part, because on one hand, and I found it interesting, like George Kaplan, who is a former personal assistant for Diddy, like detailed all these, witnessing the abuse, he said, of Cassie. And then he was someone who would start work at 9:30 in the morning. And I think he said sometimes he went home at 7:00 in the morning the next day. And that's just what it was like. And he still,
and who they may have been behind closed doors. Once that gap is visible, the image can't be repaired easily. You can repaint cracks, but you can't erase them. People who once spoke confidently became vague. People who once praised loudly became quiet. Silence shifted meaning. It stopped being neutral and started feeling strategic. That's the thing about image collapse. You can feel it before you see it fully. The air changes. The confidence drains out of conversations. The certainty disappears. Revelations don't need to be exhaustive to be effective. They just need to be believable enough to destabilize trust. And believability comes from context, history, and who is doing the speaking. Breaking silence after years carries weight. It signals that the cost of staying quiet became heavier than the cost of speaking. And that calculation alone makes people uneasy. The image shattered because it relied on the assumption that silence would last forever, that no one would step forward without fear, that time would bury everything.
At the end of his testimony, said something along the lines of, he respects Diddy as this business person. In the eyes of the law and in this trial, what's the line between, well, this was a guy who just worked his employees really hard, to the point of where it was a forced labor issue where he was breaking the law?
So I think the perfect forced labor issue is I think Mia's testimony that we read through today, and I think it's really easy for someone to say, "Well, hey, why don't you just leave?" Well, one of the elements with forced labor is if you leave, you're threatened with reputational damage, you're threatened with being blackballed, you're threatened with psychological manipulation. So I think that's a perfect example with respect to Kaplan's testimony. I think the what was so important is when he said toward the end of his testimony, I believe, that did he call him a god amongst men? Well, how did he become a god amongst men? Did he use his enterprise? Did he use his influence? Did he use coercion? Did he use threats? Did he use violence to become a god amongst men? So I think, whereas a lot of people may think that that was really flattering toward Diddy, I thought that that was more damaging than anything because of what he did to become a god amongst men. Does that make sense to you?
No, it does. And that's an interesting way to look at
Yeah.
it, because at the end of Kaplan's testimony, we did a show specifically, and I found it interesting because, like, really in the grand scheme of all the witnesses, George Kaplan's probably, by the end of this, someone that we may not even remember his name. But I just found it interesting where he was worked so hard. He was cleaning up the hotel rooms, and talked about all the baby oil and stuff that he was cleaning up in the hotel room. So you're just like, what kind of job is this? And then at the end, he's still like, yeah, it was almost, he was trying to be complimentary. But you look at that and you're like, the view that people had of Sean Combs within Bad Boy and Combs Enterprises, it was beyond, it felt like a boss, because there's still this, like, I need to give him a compliment at the end of the testimony. From the defense's side, they have tried to say, well, hey, Sean Combs, the video from 2016, yeah, it's bad. He was, this is domestic abuse. It's not a domestic abuse case. This is a racketeering, sex trafficking case. As a criminal defense attorney, to this point, how have they been doing in trying to score points for Sean Combs after some really difficult testimony that the government's putting forward?
I think they've been making some good objections. I think that they've been doing the best they can. I was shocked that they didn't cross-examine Cassie's mother, which I thought was extremely damaging testimony. But I think they're doing exactly the best that they can with what they've got. I think that Diddy ran a campaign, or at least this is what the government is showing us, that he ran a campaign of psychological warfare. You can tell in the type of people that he hired. A lot of people have testified that if they left, they didn't have really many resources. They may not have had the parents or the spouse or the background to help them do other things within the industry. So, and I think he did that on purpose with his hiring practices. And again, it was just a reign of terror and psychological warfare. I think the defense, they're just doing the best they can. They're poking little holes in people's memories, which to me it really doesn't matter. The fundamentals are what matters. If you can't remember whether somebody had on a yellow shirt or purple shoes, that doesn't matter. I care about the fundamentals, and I think they're doing great jobs with poking holes, but they're not doing a good job where it matters, because they don't.
Time doesn't bury what keeps resurfacing. As the revelations circulated, people revisited the past. Old stories gained new significance. Patterns emerged where randomness was once assumed. That's when image damage becomes irreversible. You can deny a claim, you can argue motive, you can question timing, but you can't unring the bell of doubt once it's loud enough. The industry thrives on perception control. This moment reminded everyone that control is temporary, that narratives only hold as long as everyone agrees to repeat them. Once someone refuses, the illusion fractures. Image shattering isn't loud celebration, it's quiet recalibration, it's contracts reconsidered, it's invitations that stop coming, it's names no longer mentioned with the same certainty. And the most unsettling part is that no one knows how much more exists beneath the surface. Once cracks appear, people assume there's more behind them. That assumption alone changes everything. The revelations didn't provide closure, they opened a door, and doors, once open, invite others to look inside. Some will continue to defend the image, because letting go of it means confronting uncomfortable truths about their own choices. Others will distance themselves to protect their own reputations. Very few will address the substance directly. Because substance is dangerous. What's clear is that the image no longer stands uncontested. It's no longer a given, it's a question mark. And in an industry built on certainty, question marks are lethal. This moment isn't about final judgment. It's about perception shifting irreversibly, about trust eroding, about the realization that image is fragile when silence breaks. The shattering didn't happen because people wanted drama. It happened because someone decided the truth, or their version of it, mattered more than preserving a facade. And facades don't survive that. Whether more comes out or not, the damage is done. The image people once accepted without hesitation is now filtered through skepticism. That skepticism won't fade easily. The industry is watching carefully now, not reacting loudly, watching, because when an image collapses this suddenly, everyone wonders whose is next. The silence is gone. And without silence, images don't get to hide.